It's now my pleasure to introduce the presiding officer today, and he is AdCraft's second vice president, and for a paycheck, he's the vice president and director of sales at WDIV-TV. Please welcome AdCraft Vice President Ted Pierce.
Thank you, Bobby. I want to take a moment to personally congratulate everybody in this room. You magazine people, without question, are by far the best people in this market. You know everybody, you work hard, you have been tremendous leaders. You make a difference every day, you make a difference in this market, you've made a difference in my life, and I know in a lot of others. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
I want to thank the AdCraft Club for having us here, Bob Mankoff and I, and Luke Kona, who's the publisher of The New Yorker, and everybody else from The New Yorker. Apparently there are people from other magazines too, evidently. And I have to tell you, it's still very strange for me to be introduced as an editor and not a writer. I grew up at the Washington Post as a newspaper reporter, and I began as a sports reporter. And I had the very glamorous job of being the second-string boxing writer for the Washington Post in an era where there's no boxing at all. And all reporters are trained to disdain editors, to think of them as, you know, the people that hold them down, you know, the master, the man, and in all the negative sense of that word. And I learned my lesson about editors while covering a fight in Las Vegas. Was at ringside with an 82-year-old columnist for the Washington Post whose first job in life had been as the caddy for Calvin Coolidge. And he was the editor, the sports editor for the Washington Post for 40, 50 years, even though he really liked being a writer best. His name was Shirley Povich. In fact, Shirley Povich every year was in Who's Who in American Women. And he used to have to fill out a questionnaire, has gender ever held you back in your career? And he would always just check the box, no, none at all. And I was covering this fight, and you have to file paragraph after paragraph after every round, because it's so late at night and you're going to miss your deadline. And then you file a lead, and the editor tells you what's actually going to be in the paper. And when he told me it was nothing like what I had filed, all the poetry was out of it, all the wit, all the candor, all the grace of David Remnick had been reduced to a mere nub of facts. And I think the editor even had the bad grace to put in who actually won the fight. And I slammed the phone down. I do all these things that reporters do, and screamed and yelled and acted like a kid. So the 82-year-old sage Shirley Povich turned to me and he said, "Young man, an editor is just a mouse training to be a rat." So I have traveled all the way on the 6 o'clock flight from Detroit to be that role today. There are a lot of satisfactions about editing The New Yorker magazine. Above all, it's a magazine where we can engage with, I think, the most intelligent and engaged audience of any magazine that I can possibly think of. It's just, we have over 1 million subscribers, and I don't know how many readers eventually come across this magazine, and they engage with absolutely everything that we do. They read these pieces, they argue with us, we hear from them now on our website a lot. And since 9/11, the magazine has played a really pivotal role in a very serious time in foreign policy, a serious time in the domestic economy, and I know that concerns all of you and all of us. And it's something that's been rewarded year after year, the ambition of the magazine. The other day, I think yesterday in fact, we were nominated for, in our version of the Oscars, we have these ASME Awards, National Magazine Awards, and we got 9 finalist nominations, the most of any magazine in the country. And in the past decade, I think every year we've had the most finalists, and usually at the very top, if not the top, in the number of winners. So we're very, very proud of that. But really my main job is as an editor of talking dog cartoons. That's the thing. That's what I do the best, and it's a job worthy of a 12-year-old child, and I do it well. And For example, when we have very strange people doing cartoons for us who have very odd jobs, because you can't always make a living just being a cartoonist, except for Bob Mankoff. One of them is Leo Cullum, who is a combination airline pilot cartoonist. Next time you're on a flight, just consider the fact that the guy up front guiding your 727, 747 may be also doodling little dogs. And Leo, not long ago, did a cartoon in which one dog says to the other, "I bit somebody once, it tasted like chicken." And as an editor, I knew that two Chihuahuas would never say this to each other, but two beagles certainly could. And the person who was the great expert in cartooning in this country, and who is a great delight to work for and with, mostly for, is the man you're about to meet, Bob Mankoff. Bob began as a cartoonist and began, in fact, on the late side, selling cartoons. He'll tell you all about it, believe me, in a minute. Bob is unique. Not only is he one of the great cartoonists of our time, but he's also just as there's an airline pilot / cartoonist on our staff, we also have clearly the world's first cartoonist entrepreneur. Bob is the cartoon editor at The New Yorker and does a brilliant job at it when he comes to the office, which is once in a while. But he runs something called the Cartoon Bank, where he is able to sell the cartoons as prints, as shower curtains, as, I don't know, as underpants, edible or otherwise. So I'd like to introduce Bob Mankoff, who represents the best of what we do and certainly the funniest. Here he is.
You can turn on your cell phones and pagers. I'm from New York, I understand this. You're all very busy people. It's only cartoons. You got a lot on your plate, and you really want to get a lot done. I'm going to give you the quick. I'm out at the University of Michigan, actually, in Ann Arbor, teaching, of course, the art and science of humor, which, getting paid for 5 weeks, you're going to get the whole thing in a half hour. So, anyway, so let's get started, because really everybody wants to be a New Yorker cartoonist. I had an arrhythmia. I went to my cardiologist and found out as cartoon editor. He said, "I have an idea for a cartoon." I said, "Great, I got an idea for a bypass." I'm the cartoon editor, which means I get to see about 1,000 cartoons every week. I take 30 or 40 or 50 into David, and Jacob Lewis is the managing editor, and I also run the Cartoon Bank, as David said. Oh, we came out with this book because we have a database of all the cartoons, 70,336 cartoons, and I have a standing offer. This is all the cartoons on a DVD and 2,000 in the book. If you can find a cartoon that we missed, I'll pay you $10. Well, how we did this, I mean, the great ethos of The New Yorker is that right from the very beginning, every single cartoon was cataloged and written down in these volumes. Everybody has a scrapbook. There's mine over there, Mankoff, Robert, 1977. That's when I had my first cartoon. When you die, they fill in that part. And they put the obit. You can really look in these books and you can see that. We do cartoons on a lot of different issues, advertising. Cats, we have a lot of cartoons about cats. Never ever think outside the box. I'll read them. The France. It's called French Army Knife. And of course, sex. You slept with her, didn't you? Since this is going to be the cartoon course, this is what you have to know. We get 1,000 cartoons a week, and to be a cartoonist, you have to accept rejection, rejection, rejection. And we have all sorts of new artists who come into the magazine. Young, new faces and cartoonists, and then I did get accepted. Now, this is not what the New Yorker actually, but all of humor really is the difference between objective reality and our emotional reality. And this is certainly what I said. Now, you'll see a few of these because David talked about, but here are some of the early cartoons I sold to the magazines. There is no justice in the world. There is some justice in the world. The world is just. Sort of my basic philosophy. Okay. Hi, I'm my mom. You have to forgive me. I'm terrible with names. I mean, in each of my cartoons, I try to have some idea communicate through the medium of humor, and this is what lemmings believe. I'm sorry, dear, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat what you've said since we've been married? Geez, you're the worst focus group I've ever seen. And this, No Thursdays Out, How About Never is Never Good for You, which is a cartoon that's been reprinted over thousands of times. And at this point, I know in life, usually when people come up to me and say, you know what your favorite cartoon of mine is? I say, yes. Sort of my whole theory of humor, in a way, is that it's something normal, but at the same time a violation of the normal. When you look at a line like that and you say, well, why couldn't you just end snottily on how about never? Because what humor is sort of like stimulating two different ideas that don't go away. One is that the syntax is the syntax of complete politeness. No Thursdays out, how about never, is never good for you. At the same time, the message is completely rude. So sort of that's why I wrote the line like that. When I do the cartoons for the magazine, I do them. When I try to select the 30 or 40 that go to David's, I sort of look at the gag diagonal. And the gag diagonal is over here where you see that. I don't know if you can read that. It's a law office, and they say, Mr. Hodel, my normal office hours are over, but I always have time and a half for you, up on the right. And down at the other part of the thing it says, we've completely child-proofed our home. And if you look, there are little kids out that window. Over here you have the fantasy quadrant, this wonderful Barsotti cartoon, which both things are strange. Fusilli, you crazy bastard, how are you? And then you have something we don't do and it's very hard to do now, Slice of Life, where it's this Bob Weber cartoon where the guy's saying, well, this is where the magic happens, in the kitchen, and the kitchen's a disaster. So those are sort of the four types of cartoons. The University of Michigan, you see when you look at humor is a type of play, but it's sort of play for our brains. And in the play mode, you can do a lot of things you wouldn't do normally. In other words, you can have pretty macabre stuff, paper or plastic. Stuff that would disturb you otherwise. Because you're in the play mode. In the play mode, you can be pretty cruel. You'll be awake during the entire procedure. The anesthesiologist is on vacation. Mode, once again. The purpose of humor is to be able to actually feel positive about all horrible things. And that's what it enables us to do. The other thing, you have to deal with flaws. My first boat. There are no cartoons about good things. There's no humor about good things. The vacation that you had a good time on is boring. The vacation you had a bad time on is funny. So flaws. And of course, exaggeration. Your car will be right down, Mr. Lundquist. Here's another exaggeration. It's called January 3rd at Rockefeller Center. Basically, the whole cartoon perspective is to interface with reality by completely distorting it and getting to an emotional truth. Because this is what it's like. Okay, surprise. You've got to have surprise. That little and people talk about good drawing and bad drawing. It's a little guy coming out of banana, and I have a thing that I call good bad drawing. This is sort of that. The last thing you would want is this cartoon drawn very realistically. It would be pretty disgusting. Okay, here's surprise: accounting department, legal department, jail. Okay, if you're going to be a cartoonist for the New Yorker, don't do it this way. That's a mistake. Save it for the end. If I have an executive saying, gentlemen, the upside potential is tremendous, but the downside is jail. Save jail for the end. Okay. Conflict. There are no cartoons about good marriages or good relationships. God bless you, have them, but they're boring. So it's always people against one another, or against groups. It's not enough that we succeed, cats also must fail. Clash of context. You know, people say, oh, humor, it's all superiority, it's all aggression. No, but the truth is, in any time you have two frames where you're mushing things together, one must diminish the other for it to be funny. Bart Simpson has to take Che Guevara down a little bit. And also clash of context, any time that kids talk like adults or adults talk like kids, that's also clash of context. Okay, targeting. Somebody has to suffer. You know what I mean? Something bad happened. But once again, it's a play frame. So they're really, well, the thing about the cartoons is they're just generic characters. No one is actually getting hurt. And what it does, it does what I call remove the moral dilemma of aggression. You know, we all are very loving people, especially in Ann Arbor, where I am. Too loving. People in general piss us off. When you think of who's caused problems in your life, it's people. They are the worst. That's an excellent pre-screened question, but before I give you my stock answer, I'll try to disarm everyone with a carefully rehearsed joke. So if it's politics or it's business, 1 billion is 1,000 millions. Why wasn't I informed of this? Somebody is being made fun of, okay? And of course we make fun of religion in a mild way. This is a little embarrassing to admit, but everything that happens for no real reason. Act of God, no problem, we sue God. Now, there was this big controversy, of course, with the Muhammad cartoons, and I was on stage and with Muslims, and I was defending what I call the rights of ridicule. And I said, okay, I'm leaving Muhammad alone. I'm going right to the top. Is that okay? It seems like it was actually more okay. Of course, boat christening, boat drift. And I'm a big admirer of editorial cartoons, but because they always have an axe, because they're always in this purposeful mode, they're never actually funny, because they still have that bitterness. And I think our cartoons, we do something else. We do try to point out issues, but in sort of a ludic way. Now at the cartoon meeting, it's very difficult, because it's not just me, David Remnick, and Jacob Lewis. There is the ghost of William Shawn and Howard Ross, and they're always trying to tell us not to do the wrong thing, not to use a bad word. And pretty much we don't use a bad word. I mean, I did a very funny cartoon I thought I showed to David some years ago, in which is the Tony Soprano type, and he's you know, in a room with all his guys, and he's saying, if these walls could talk and they knew what was good for them, they'd shut the fuck up. But hell doesn't work. But we do deal with all sorts of, like, issues. How else are we going to pay for the war? I wouldn't mind living in a fundamentalist state. Now, you know, one of the things about humor is it's all about distance. You know, the truth is humor is not empathy, it's the lack of empathy. It actually tells us we're okay. It's something didn't happen to us. It accounts for all sort of black humor. Now here, because the pigs are so cute, we're not reminded of anything. But if we were going to run a cartoon like the Abu Ghraib No Hard Feelings Pizza Party, now, you know, now it's touching more on those issues. See, we didn't run that cartoon. See, laughter is a reflex. The ooh tells you what a good person you are. So that's the part of it. So the New Yorker isn't it's not a free-for-all, it's not a comedy club. We push the envelope sort of gradually, because really it is in the place of all the articles. It is a parallel universe, but it's in the New Yorker. It's funny when how upset people can get. Up there, there's a little rat being hung, or he hung himself, and the caption is discouraging data on the antidepressant. Now, I do surveys online, and it shows how actually people feel about it. A lot of people think it's great, that's the funniest cartoon, but over there, the person only rated it as a 3. I like animals! Exclamation point. I don't even like to see them suffer in cartoons. So this sort of shows you really that, you have to do the cartoons, but you have to understand with a million people reading it, people are going to be upset really about, they can be upset literally about anything. Like here, look at this cartoon where the guy, he's shrinking. But that's the email I got, which basically if you read it, says, well, another cartoon about, white males, haha, I hope you drop dead, basically. So the guy thought that was okay, based on that cartoon. So it's very, even as light as I think, and gossamer touch our humor has, it's always possible to offend someone. But when you look at cartoons, you see this cartoon, it's this pissy old woman, and from 1947, and over there the guy's reaching for, it looks like a shoe, but it's a gun. Now, in terms of targeting, when you create a target, you make them completely unsympathetic. That's what's been done here by Chon Day, and it's a wonderful cartoon because you watch the surprise. But we have to feel that no sympathy for this woman at all, because if we feel sympathy, oh, now it's horrible. Oh, now that child in the cartoon will be orphaned. Same thing with this cartoon. Now, people laugh at that, but if there's a poor old guy coming up, oh, that is so very sad. So, I will conclude. Well, I need someone well-versed in the art of torture. Do you have PowerPoint? But once again, that depends on our associations. If we associate it with PowerPoint, that's one thing. If we associate it with torture, it's another thing. So the point of my little talk is this, to make you stop and think a little bit about humor. Thank you.